So the last join we want to discuss is the so-called map side join, where we will do the join on the map side, as the name suggests, but not in a way that we have seen earlier, where we use the distributed cache to share one small relation across all of the map tasks, and also not the reduce side join with map side filtering. Here we want to really do the join on the map side for two large relations. So what's the idea? The idea is very simple. Reconsider what we have seen in the database systems course, or in any database systems course, usually discussed the sort merge join. So here we assume, like we did in the merge join, that data is already sorted. If not, we have to sort it, which is not really a problem in MapReduce to do. More about this later on and in the exercises. So consider we have these relations already sorted by the key we want to use for the join computation. So the key is the attribute that is used in the join predicate. I'm talking about an equijoin here as well, so we're checking for equality. So here we have relation R and S, the join keys. And in the merge join, if you remember, we would go now from the top down and make a match between the keys, right? And of course, it's important to notice, if you don't remember that, but I guess you will remember now, if you have duplicates here, which can of course happen, if the attribute has duplicates, then you have to be a bit special careful, because here in this case for A, you have 4 result tuples and not only 2 in case you're implementing the algorithm wrong. But anyway, how can we do this now in MapReduce? So these relations here are super large, and we again know that they are chunked up and are placed in our distributed file system. So how can this now work out in MapReduce, that we can join these corresponding values? The trick here is to properly align data. So you're making the chunks in a way, here for relation R and for relation S, you're making the chunks in a way that within the chunks these values are joinable, but not across these chunks. So these would be the way. So you have 3 chunks here, and you have the chunk from relation R. The first one has only matching tuples in the first chunk of S, and so on. And this is enough to compute the join. And what needs to be given, of course, is that if you have a tuple here, T1, that there is no join partner for T1 here in this chunk, for instance, or in this chunk, only in this chunk. So how can we make sure this happens? Well, we have to come up with prior MapReduce jobs, 2 of them, that are using the same number of reducers and sorting the tuples in the output based on the key. Since we have the same number of reducers, we have the same number of output files, and since the partitioning is done according to the key, which is the same, of course, because we do an equijoin for both relations, the tuples in the individual partitions, 1, 2, 3, and so on, they are fitting each other. So 1 is fitting to 1, partition 2 is fitting partition 2, and so on, right? Of course, there are also tuples in which do not match. For instance, there can be a tuple T3 here, which is not a match to T1, just because imagine we have thousands of different values for the key, but only 3 reducers. So of course, there's also, like always, also for the word count example, things grouped in these partitions, which is not unique, right? So now we have done this. We have these MapReduce jobs. We have sorted these tuples based on the key, in the same order, of course, ascending. And here we have the same number of reducers. That's important. And in the end, we can perform the join with one more additional MapReduce job. In order to do this for Hadoop, there exists a special input format named composite input format. And this is exactly what you need in order to tell Hadoop or the MapReduce implementation to read these chunks. So here we have the R chunks and the S chunks in a manner that matches your that matches the envisioned join. What you have to specify is the type of join you want to compute. For instance, inner join or outer join. Usually we're interested in the inner join, but as you know, there are also other ways or other join types like outer join, left outer join, right outer join, semi-join, and so on. But this is the way how you're computing a map side join. Remember the merge join in database systems, and here is just like the equivalent way you're doing this in MapReduce. So I mentioned already databases now in this context, and indeed, so now as we are able to compute SQL queries, this kind of looks like it's a redesign of a database system, and of course it's not really comparable. I mean, you can compare it, but it's not really the same, to be precise. So if you're looking at the data size, for instance, in a database system, you're talking about gigabytes or tens of gigabytes, perhaps hundreds of gigabytes. So MapReduce is not designed for gigabytes, it's designed for petabytes, so much more data, right? Terabytes, petabytes, and so on. So the database system, as we know it, is done usually in, as you remember, these OLTP and OLAP and workloads, so for interactive exploration or for daily business transactions. Here in MapReduce, we are not really interested in getting transactions running in a few milliseconds for our daily businesses, but we want to do data analytics. Like we want to compute so-called batch jobs, like long-running jobs that are doing some computation over multiple of these petabytes. And then regarding updates, in MapReduce, data is given and you can analyze it multiple times, but you don't have updates, at least not the way it is designed for. And then you, let's say, you're considering these updates in your results. In database systems, of course, we know we have updates frequently to our database. That's why we have to do concurrency control and so on. The structure in databases is static, right? We have relations with a known schema. In MapReduce, we are not handling only relational data, but all kind of data. So here the schema is not predefined like in a database system. Yeah. The integrity of the system itself, like the data is high in the traditional database system and low for the MapReduce implementation or MapReduce aims. Scaling, I mean, these are like of course not extremely hard categories and answers here. It's always like a spectrum, you have to interpret these. But these are the extreme interpretations, let's say. So in terms of scaling, the MapReduce framework should scale linearly, whereas the traditional database systems is supposed to be only nonlinear scaling. But again, these are only, let's say, two sides of the spectrum, and depending, of course, also on the algorithms you're implementing inside MapReduce, it is always, or it depends on this as well. So what are the benefits or the problems with MapReduce? So why was it invented? Well, I said earlier it was from a paper described in 2004 by Google, where they said how they are making use of MapReduce. And even so, it's not anymore as frequently used in research and production as it was some years ago. There are still like improved versions or improved frameworks like MapReduce, which are frequently applied. For instance, Apache Spark would be, you can say it's the successor of MapReduce. So what was the aim? The aim was scalable computation, also in the presence of node failures, so really going for petabytes, high throughput, and a very simple model where you have two functions, map and reduce, and you can solve your data analytics tasks, even though you're not a programmer or like a database expert. However, when you're looking at the MapReduce functionality, given these two functions only, map and reduce, it's also kind of cumbersome to write higher level routines, right? For instance, in the SQL queries or the joins, if you want to implement this, you have to spend some time to think about how you would do it. So it is easy to write some simple codes, but if you want to have some higher level functionality, it's getting quite a hassle to do that. On the other hand, in database systems, we all like SQL queries. Well, we might not all like them, but this is very elegant and easy to write. And if you want to do this in MapReduce, well, at least in the initial versions, it was not really supported, right? But then people started, because of these limitations, people started to come up with extensions, query languages, for instance, like Pig, that would be declarative, and you can write some like more complicated queries, which would be translated then to MapReduce jobs. Right? So even so it started with very low-level routines, in the end people added something which in the end goes into the direction of SQL. In particular, Hive was one SQL implementation on top of MapReduce. And nowadays, these more modern systems like Spark, they also support SQL. So for some people, in particular the core database community, they say that MapReduce is a major step backwards because of exactly these reasons. Right? It's too low level. There's like no updates. I mentioned earlier, there are no transactions. So no updates, no transactions. There are no index structures. And then, of course, people also started implementing something like indexing in MapReduce, so the queries would run more effectively than without any query. But in the end, also, these criticisms, of course, is fair, but this was never the aim of MapReduce when it was proposed by Google, that it would replace a database system, right? So it's a different aim, of course. Just that people in the end wanted to have the benefits of a database system also for the scalable processing of MapReduce, which in the end led to these criticisms. And if you're interested in this, I guess this link should still be active, like some comments by David and Stonebreaker on this MapReduce.